The Great Hall of Station Prime was filled with beings from across the galaxy. 47 species had sent their representatives to this meeting. The air smelled of different atmospheres, pumped in through small devices that each alien wore. Light from distant stars came through the crystal walls and made everything glow. Counselor Dreth stood at the center of the chamber. He was tall, nearly 3 meters, with a hard shell covering his body like armor. His species had always hated humans. They found them loud, aggressive, and far too successful for such a young race. Today, Dreth would finally solve the human problem forever. "Fellow counselors," Dreth said, his voice clicking through his translator, "I bring news that will change our galaxy. The human homeworld, the planet they called Earth, has been destroyed. Their colonies have gone silent. Their fleets have been scattered and broken. Humanity is extinct." He pressed a button, and images appeared in the air above him. A blue and green planet burning. Cities turning to ash. Ships exploding in the darkness of space. The evidence was clear and terrible. The chamber was silent for a moment. Then whispers began to spread. Some counselors looked sad. Others tried to hide their relief. A few openly smiled. "I move that we declare humanity officially extinct," Dreth continued. "Their territories will be open for reclamation. Their resources can be divided among the member species of this council." Far away, hidden behind the broken rocks and ice of Saturn's rings, a single ship floated in the darkness. The ship was called the Defiance, and it had once been the pride of Earth's navy. Now its hull was scarred with battle damage. Whole sections had been sealed off because of breaches. But it was still alive, and so were the 3,000 humans aboard. Admiral Una stood on the bridge, watching the council's broadcast on a flickering screen. She was 52 years old, with gray streaks in her black hair and a face that had forgotten how to smile months ago. She had commanded fleets. She had won battles that should have been impossible. Now she commanded a single damaged ship hiding like a wounded animal. Around her, the bridge crew watched the same broadcast. Lieutenant Taiwan sat at the communications station, his young face pale as he listened to aliens discuss the death of his world. Navigator Yunji gripped her console so hard her knuckles turned white. Chief Engineer Junho had stopped pretending to work on his repairs. "The motion passes unanimously," the broadcast announced. "Humanity is declared extinct. May their spirits find peace." Someone on the bridge started crying. It was a soft sound, quickly muffled. Una did not turn to see who it was. She understood. She wanted to cry too. But admirals do not cry in front of their crews. "Admiral," Taiwan said, his voice shaking. They just erased us. Like we never existed." Una watched Counselor Dreth smile on the screen. She watched other aliens already beginning to argue about which territories they would claim. Human cities, human farms, human graves, all being divided like meat among hungry animals. And then, slowly, Admiral Una smiled. It was not a nice smile. It was the smile of someone who had been waiting a very long time for this moment. "Lieutenant Taiwan," she said, and her voice was calm and cold. "Open Secure Channel 7. Authorization code Homecoming." Taiwan stared at her. "Admiral?" "Do it now, Lieutenant." His hands moved across his console. "Channel open, Admiral." Una leaned forward and spoke 3 words into the microphone. "Begin Operation Homecoming." For a moment, nothing happened. Then Taiwan's console began to light up. Signals were coming in from across the galaxy. From hidden bases in asteroid fields. From ships hiding in the clouds of gas giants. From colonies buried deep beneath frozen moons. From everywhere, "Admiral," Taiwan whispered, his eyes wide. "I'm receiving acknowledgement signals. Hundreds of them. No, thousands. They're all responding. The bridge crew stared at their screens. More signals kept appearing. Green dots on the star map, spreading like seeds across the darkness. "The council thinks we are dead," Una said, straightening her uniform. "They think they have won. They think they can divide our home like vultures picking at a corpse." She turned to face her crew, and now her eyes were burning with something that had been sleeping for 6 months. "They are wrong." She walked to the main view screen and looked out at the rings of Saturn, at the cold stars beyond. 6 months ago, our world burned. Our people died. We ran because we had to, because survival mattered more than pride. We hid in the shadows while our enemies hunted us. We stayed silent while the galaxy forgot we existed. Her voice grew stronger, but we did not break. We did not give up. We scattered, and we survived, and we waited. And now, while they celebrate our death, while they congratulate themselves on destroying us. She turned back to her crew. Every face was watching her now. The tears had stopped. Something else had replaced the grief. Something fierce and hungry. Now we show them what humanity does when the universe pushes us down. We get back up. We fight back. And we make them remember why they were afraid of us in the first place. The bridge erupted in cheers. Months of hiding, of fear, of grief, all of it transformed in an instant into something powerful. Something dangerous. Admiral, Una allowed herself one moment to feel it. Then she became a commander again. All hands, battle stations. Navigator Yunji, plot a course to Rally Point 1. Lieutenant Taiwan maintained communication silence except for encrypted fleet channels. She sat down in her command chair and looked at the stars that had written humanity off. It's time to go home. 6 months before the council declared humanity dead, Captain G1 stood on the bridge of the colony ship New Dawn and watched her world burn. Earth filled the view screen, but it was not the Earth she remembered. The blue oceans had turned gray with ash. The green continents were spotted with orange fire. Bright flashes marked where orbital strikes were still falling, each one destroying a city, a forest, a million lives. The New Dawn carried 50,000 civilians, families with children, scientists with their research, teachers, doctors, farmers, artists. All of them had left everything behind. All of them were now watching their home die. "Captain," her first officer said quietly, "the Gemini fleet is advancing. We need to jump now, or we never will." G1 did not answer. She was watching a particular spot on the planet. Korea, where she had grown up. Where her parents still lived. Where her little sister had just started university. The comm system crackled. A voice came through, weak and broken by static. "This is Sole Defense Command to any ships in range. We are being overrun. If anyone can hear this, please tell them we fought. Tell them we didn't give up. Tell them the transmission cut off." A bright flash appeared over the Korean peninsula. "Captain," the first officer said again. G1. She closed her eyes for just 1 second. When she opened them, the tears were gone. Only duty remained. "Jump," she ordered. "Get us out of here." The stars stretched and blurred, and Earth disappeared behind them. The attack had come without warning. One moment, humanity was building colonies and exploring new worlds. The next moment, 3 alien species had combined their fleets and struck at Earth itself. They called themselves the Hegemony. They had watched humans spread across the stars for 50 years, and they had grown afraid. Humans bred too fast, learned too quickly, adapted too well. The Hegemony decided it was better to destroy humanity now, while they still could, than wait until it was too late. Earth's defense fleet fought for 72 hours. They knew they could not win. They only needed to buy time. Time for the evacuation ships to escape. Time for the colonies to receive warning. Time for humanity to scatter like seeds in the wind. Admiral Yuna commanded the last stand at Earth. Her flagship took 17 direct hits before she ordered the retreat. By then, 200 civilian ships had escaped. It was not enough. It could never be enough. But it was something. The evacuation was chaos. Ships jumped to random coordinates to avoid being tracked. Families were separated. Entire colonies went dark to hide from hegemony patrols. For weeks, no one knew who was alive and who was dead. But humanity had prepared for this day. Not because they expected it, but because humans always prepare for the worst. Deep in the asteroid belt, hidden mining stations became refugee camps. On frozen moons where no one would think to look, emergency supplies have been stored decades ago. In the Oort cloud, at the very edge of the solar system, shipyards that officially did not exist began working day and night. Sergeant Narration was on Mars when the hegemony came. She commanded a small security unit, nothing special. Just 30 soldiers protecting a farming colony. When the alien ships appeared in the sky, she knew her squad could not win a straight fight. So she did not fight a straight fight. She led her people into the old mining tunnels beneath the colony. For 6 months, they survived in the darkness. They raided hegemony supply lines. They sabotaged equipment. They rescued human prisoners and brought them underground. The aliens called them ghosts. They sent patrols into the tunnels, but the patrols never came back. Myray taught her growing army to fight like shadows, to strike and disappear, to make the enemy afraid of every dark corner. "We can't win," one of her soldiers said one night. "There are too many of them." Myray looked at the young man. He was barely 20, a farmer's son who had never held a gun before the invasion. Now he had killed more aliens than he could count. "We don't need to win," she told him. "We just need to survive. We need to keep fighting until help comes." "What if help never comes?" Myray smiled in the darkness. "Then we keep fighting anyway. That's what humans do." Across the scattered remnants of human space, the same story repeated itself. On every occupied world, resistance formed. In every hidden base, survivors gathered. And slowly, carefully, they began to communicate with each other. Dr. Suho was the one who created the network. He was a scientist who studied alien species, a quiet man who preferred books to battles. But he understood something important. The hegemony had made a mistake. They thought human civilization was like theirs, centered on one world, controlled from one place. Destroy Earth and humanity would fall. But humans were not like that. Humans were messy and scattered and stubborn. Every colony was independent. Every ship was its own small nation. There was no single point of failure. "They think we're dead because we went silent," Suho explained to Admiral Yuna during one of their rare encrypted meetings. "Let them think that. Let them believe they won. While they celebrate, we rebuild. While they divide our territories, we gather our strength." "How long?" Yuna asked. 6 months, Suho said. "Maybe less. We need them to commit their forces to occupation. We need them spread thin, comfortable, and careless. Then we strike." So humanity waited. They hid and healed and built. They trained new soldiers and repaired old ships. They turned their grief into fuel and their anger into weapons. And when the Galactic Council finally declared them extinct, they were ready. The Oort cloud was cold and dark and far from everything. No alien species bothered to patrol there. No sensors could reach that deep into empty space. It was the perfect place to build an army. Commander Dong Yun stood on the observation deck of the hidden shipyard and watched his life's work take shape. Before him, floating in the darkness, was the Retribution. It was the largest warship humanity had ever built. assembled from the broken pieces of 100 destroyed vessels. Every scar on its hull told a story. Every welded plate was a memorial to the dead. "She's beautiful," said the young engineer beside him. Her name was Sora, and she had worked 18-hour days for 6 months to help build this ship. "She's angry," Dongyun corrected. "That's better than beautiful." The shipyard was not supposed to exist. 20 years ago, some paranoid generals had convinced the government to build emergency facilities in the outer solar system. Places where ships could be repaired if Earth fell. Most people thought it was a waste of money. Now, those paranoid generals had saved humanity. 300 ships were being built or repaired in the Oort cloud. Fighters, destroyers, carriers, and support vessels. It was not as many as the hegemony had, but it would have to be enough. Captain Jiwan arrived at the shipyard with her colony ships and 50,000 civilians. Within days, those civilians had become workers. Teachers became welders. Doctors became technicians. Children too young to work carried messages and food to the crews working around the clock. "I thought we were running away," Jiwan told Dongyun when she first arrived. "I thought we were just trying to survive." "We were," Dongyun said. "But survival was only the first step. Now we take back what they stole." Elsewhere in the galaxy, Agent Heian was doing the most dangerous work of all. She had been a spy before the war, gathering intelligence on alien species. When Earth fell, she was already deep in hegemony space, pretending to be a refugee from a minor species. Her cover was perfect. Her alien contacts believed she was just another victim of galactic politics. For 6 months, Hain mapped enemy positions. She counted ships. She recorded patrol schedules. She bribed corrupt officials and seduced lonely officers. Every piece of information was encrypted and sent to Admiral Yuna through channels so secret that even Han did not fully understand them. The work was slow and terrifying. Every day, she expected to be caught. Every night, she dreamed of Earth burning. But she kept going, because the fleet needed to know where to strike. "The hegemony is overconfident," she reported in her final transmission. "They have spread their forces across all of human space. They are looting our colonies and stripping our planets. Their main fleet has been divided into dozens of smaller groups. They think the war is over." She paused, then added, "I have been discovered. I will not survive the next few hours, but I have sent you everything you need. Make it count. Make them pay." Admiral Yuna received that transmission alone in her quarters. She read it 3 times. Then she added Heian's name to the list she kept in her desk, the list of people she would honor when this was over. The list was very long. As the months passed, the scattered human forces began to move. Ships that had been hiding alone for weeks joined with other ships. Small groups became squadrons. Squadrons became fleets. They traveled through uncharted routes, avoiding hegemony patrols, using cold gas giants and dense nebulae for cover. Dr. Suho coordinated everything from a converted mining station. His walls were covered with star maps and fleet positions. He slept 2 hours a night and drank more coffee than was healthy. But slowly, piece by piece, he was bringing humanity back together. "The timing has to be perfect," he explained to his staff. "If we strike too early, they will have time to regroup. If we strike too late, they will dig in too deep. We need to hit them exactly when they think they have won." "When is that?" someone asked. Su smiled. "When they officially declare us dead. When they stop looking for threats. When they start celebrating." On Mars, Sergeant Myrie received new orders through the underground network. She gathered her fighters in the largest tunnel and read the message aloud. "Operation Homecoming begins in 72 hours. All resistance units are to prepare for surface operations. When the signal comes, take back our world. Her soldiers, 2,000 of them now, grown from her original 30, began to cheer. 6 months of hiding was ending. 6 months of small raids and careful survival was about to become open war. "Remember what they took from us," Myre told them, her voice cutting through the noise. "Remember our families. Remember our homes. Remember Earth. Now make them remember us." In the Orc cloud, the Retribution powered up its engines for the first time. The sound traveled through the shipyard, a deep rumble that everyone felt in their bones. Commander Dong-Yun stood on the bridge and watched the systems come online one by one. "All stations report ready," his first officer announced. Dong-Yun nodded. He thought about his wife, who had died on Earth, his children, who had escaped on different ships and whom he had not seen in months. His parents, his friends, his home all gone, but not forgotten. "Never forgotten. Signal the fleet," he said. "The Retribution is ready for battle." Across the darkness of space, 400 human ships began their final approach to the rally point. They flew in silence, running dark, invisible to any senses. Each crew knew the risks. Each captain understood that many of them would not survive the coming battle. They came anyway, because humanity does not stay dead. The celebration at Station Prime had lasted for 3 days. Councillor Dreth had never been happier. The human territories were being divided exactly as he had planned. His species would claim the richest colonies. The other hegemony members would get the rest. And the neutral species on the council would receive small gifts to keep them quiet. Everything was perfect. He was raising a glass of expensive wine when the lights went out. For a moment, there was only darkness. Then the screens flickered back on, and every display in the station showed the same image: a human woman in military uniform, standing on the bridge of a massive warship. "This is Admiral Yuna of the United Earth Defense Fleet," the woman said. Her voice was calm, almost pleasant. "I am broadcasting to the Galactic Council and to all species across the known galaxy." Councillor Dreth dropped his glass. It shattered on the floor, but he did not notice. "3 days ago, you declared humanity extinct," Yuna continued. "You divided our territories. You celebrated our death. You were wrong." The station sensors began screaming alarms. Officers ran to their stations, shouting readings that made no sense. Gravitational disturbances were appearing everywhere. Hundreds of them. Thousands of them died. Then the ships arrived. They emerged from hyperspace like a wave breaking against the shore. First came the destroyers, fast and aggressive, spreading out to form a perimeter. Then the cruisers, bristling with weapons that gleamed under the station's lights. Then the carriers, each one launching dozens of fighters into the void. And behind them all, larger than anything the Council had ever seen, came the Retribution. "Impossible," Dreth whispered. "This is impossible." But his eyes did not lie. 400 human warships now surrounded Station Prime, and more were arriving every minute. On the bridge of the Retribution, Commander Dong-Yun watched the Council station with grim satisfaction. The massive view screen showed tiny figures running behind the crystal walls. Aliens who had thought themselves safe, now realizing how wrong they were. "Fleet reports all ships in position," his tactical officer announced. "Weapons locked on target." "Awaiting your order, Commander." Dong-Yun looked at Admiral Yuna, who stood at the center of the bridge. She had not moved since her broadcast began. She was watching the Council's reaction with an expression he could not read. "Admiral?" he said. "Should we fire?" Yuna was silent for a long moment. She thought about Earth, about the cities that burned, about the billions who died. She thought about the months of hiding, the friends she had lost, the grief that still sat like a stone in her chest. Part of her wanted to destroy Station Prime and everyone in it. Part of her wanted revenge, pure and simple, but that was not why they had come. No, she said finally. Hold fire. Open a channel to the Council. Captain G1's fleet emerged from hyperspace on the other side of the station. The colony ships were not warships, but they carried something more important: witnesses. Journalists from neutral species, diplomats who had secretly supported humanity, historians who would record everything that happened today. Broadcasting on all public channels, G1 reported. The entire galaxy is watching. Inside Station Prime, chaos had replaced celebration. Counselors were screaming at each other. Security forces were trying to organize a defense that everyone knew was pointless. The few warships stationed at the Council, a dozen vessels, no more, were already surrounded by human fighters. Counselor Ven pushed through the crowd to reach a communication console. She was old, her scales faded with age, but her mind was still sharp. She had voted against declaring humanity extinct. She had argued that the evidence was too convenient, the silence too complete that no one had listened to her then. Perhaps they would listen now. Council Chamber, this is Counselor Ven, she broadcast. I am opening communications with the human fleet. Everyone else, be silent and let me work. The chamber fell quiet, more from shock than obedience. Admiral Yuna, Ven said, I am speaking on behalf of the Galactic Council. We did not expect to see you again. I imagine you didn't, Yuna replied, and there was ice in her voice. Tell me, Counselor, what exactly did you expect? Ven closed her eyes. We expected that the hegemony's reports were accurate. We expected that Earth was truly destroyed. We expected. She paused. We expected that we would never have to face the consequences of our choices. And now? Now I am hoping that humanity is as civilized as we always claimed you were not. On the Retribution's bridge, Dr. Suho leaned close to Yuna. The hegemony's main fleets are still scattered across human space, he said quietly. Even if they recall everything immediately, it will take weeks to assemble a response force. We have complete tactical advantage. I know, Yuna said. We could end this right now. One strike, and the Council is gone. The political structure of the galaxy would collapse. We could build something new from the ashes. Yuna looked at him. Is that what you want, Doctor? Suho hesitated. I want justice for what they did to us. I want them to feel what we felt. So do I, Yuna admitted. But justice and revenge are not the same thing. She turned back to the view screen. And I did not survive 6 months of hell just to become the monster they already thought I was. She stepped forward and raised her voice so the whole bridge could hear. Signal the fleet. We are not here to destroy. We are here to reclaim. And we will do it the right way. She opened the channel to the Council again. Counselor Ven, I am requesting emergency session privileges. I wish to address the full Council. Will you grant this request? The silence stretched for several seconds. Then Ven's voice came back, tired but relieved. Admiral Yuna, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I grant your request. Please come aboard. And please, leave your weapons on your ship. Yuna smiled, though there was no warmth in it. I don't need weapons, Counselor. I have something much more dangerous. What is that? The truth. Admiral Yuna walked into the Council chamber, wearing armor that had been burned, cut, and welded back together a dozen times. Commander Dong-Hyun walked on her left, Dr. Suho on her right. Behind them came a dozen human soldiers, unarmed as promised, but standing straight and proud. The counselors stared at them like they were ghosts. In a way, they were YUN as stopped at the center of the chamber, where speakers normally stood to address the council. She looked around at the faces watching her. Some showed fear. Some showed guilt. A few showed hatred. She noted each reaction and filed it away. 6 months ago, she began. The hegemony attacked Earth without warning, without declaration of war, without any attempt at diplomacy. They simply decided that humanity was too dangerous to exist, and they tried to wipe us out. She pressed a button on her wrist, and images appeared in the air above her. Cities burning, ships exploding, civilians running from orbital strikes. 32 billion humans lived on Earth and its colonies, she said. We do not know how many survived. The count is still ongoing, but we estimate that at least 20 billion people died in the first week alone. The chamber was silent. I am not here to beg for your sympathy, Una continued. I am not here to ask for your help. I am here to present evidence that your council knew about the attack before it happened and chose to do nothing. The silence broke into chaos. Councilors shouted denials. Dreth tried to speak, but his voice was drowned out by the noise. Security officers moved forward, unsure what to do. Una raised her hand, and her soldiers took one step forward. It was not a threat, not exactly, but it was a reminder. The noise died down. We have intercepted communications between Councilor Dreth and Hegemony Military Command, Una said. We have records of council meetings where the attack was discussed and approved. We have testimony from defectors who were present when the decision was made. She looked directly at Dreth. The insectoid counselor had stopped trying to speak. His compound eyes were fixed on her, and something like fear moved behind them. You knew, Una said. You all knew. And you let it happen because it was convenient. Because humans were growing too powerful, too fast. Because we scared you. She paused. You were right to be scared. But not for the reasons you thought. Dr. Suho stepped forward and began presenting the evidence. It was thorough, careful, and impossible to deny. Intercept the messages. Financial records showing bribes paid to neutral counselors. Detailed plans for dividing human space that had been drawn up months before the attack died as the evidence piled up. Faces around the chamber changed. Guilt became fear. Denial became despair. Some counselors began looking for exits. They found human soldiers blocking every door. What do you want? Counselor Ven finally asked. She was the only one who seemed willing to speak. You have the power to destroy us. You have proven your case. What do you want? Una turned to face her. I want justice, she said, but not revenge. I want the guilty punished, but I will not punish the innocent to get to them. I want our territories returned, but I will not conquer new ones to replace them. She looked around the chamber. Humanity was not destroyed, but we were changed. We learned that the galaxy sees us as a threat. We learned that we cannot trust treaties or councils or promises of peace. We learned that we must be strong enough to protect ourselves because no one else will. She straightened her shoulders. But we also learned something else. We learned that strength without mercy makes us no better than the ones who attacked us. We learned that survival is not enough if we lose ourselves in the process. On Mars, Sergeant Mireille led her fighters out of the tunnels. The Hegemony garrison, receiving news of what was happening at Station Prime, had already begun to surrender. Human flags were rising over the colony for the first time in 6 months. Mireille watched her soldiers embrace civilians who emerged from hiding. Children who had never seen the sun ran laughing across the red soil. Old men and women wept without shame. We did it, said the young farmer's son, who had asked her months ago if help would ever come. Not yet, Mireille said. But we're close. At Station Prime, the council voted. Councilor Dreth and his co-conspirators were arrested. The hegemony was ordered to withdraw from all human territories. Reparations were demanded, though everyone knew they could never truly repay what had been lost. Admiral Una accepted the council's decisions without celebration. She shook hands with Councilor Ven, who had worked through the night to broker the agreement. Will this be enough? Ven asked quietly. Will humanity accept this peace? Yuna considered the question. Humanity is not one thing, she said. Some will accept it. Some will want more. Some will never stop being angry. She looked out the window at the human fleet, still holding position around the station. But we will try, because that is what we do. We survive, and we try, and we keep going. 1 year later, Earth was healing. The skies were still gray in places. Ruins still marked where great cities had stood. But new buildings were rising. New forests were being planted. Children were being born who would never know the old Earth. Only the one that came after. Dr. Suho stood on a balcony in what had once been Seoul, looking out at reconstruction drones working in the distance. A journalist had asked to interview him, to hear the story of humanity's survival from someone who had helped plan it. What did humanity learn from the war? The journalist asked. Suho was quiet for a moment, collecting his thoughts. We learned that the galaxy gave up on us, he said finally. They wrote us off. They divided our homes and celebrated our death and moved on with their lives. They never expected to see us again. He turned to look at the journalist. We learned that in that moment. When everything seemed lost, the only ones who believed in humanity's survival were humans. He smiled. And for the first time in a long time, it was a real smile. And that was enough. Across the galaxy, on 100 worlds and 1,000 ships, humans were rebuilding their lives. They had been scattered and broken and declared dead. They had lost more than any species should have to lose, but they had survived. They had returned. And they had proven something that the galaxy would never forget. Humanity does not stay dead. Humanity fights back, and humanity endures.